My name is Kate Linus, and I'm from Muskegon, Michigan. Well, once I joined social media, I realized that the question of where the North begins in Michigan is very contentious. And you see all these different theories about it, particularly from the east side of the state. And we always had our own family definition of where the North begins. Well, my dad grew up just outside of a little town on the west side of the state called White Cloud. And my grandmother still lived up there. So when we would go visit, there's this big billboard at both ends of town that says, White Cloud, where the north begins and the pure water flows. So I always assumed that was it. Where does it begin?
Ah, yes. Up north. Fresh northern Michigan air, pine and birch trees entwine, crystalline inland lakes, beaches with lapping waves, campfires and s'mores. If you're a Michigander, up north is just something you feel in your bones. And if you're a saucy kind of Michigander, you can tell everyone precisely where up north begins.
Up north begins in Interlochen and above.
Like Higgins Lake?
I'm going to say Traverse City, like that Petoskey-Traverse City line.
North of the part above the thumb.
Up north always began in Tallis Point for me.
Well, I say past Ann Arbor when you go up.
Lansing.
Howell.
Claire. And I will accept no other answers.
Over the Zilwaukee Bridge.
My family always says north of the Zilwaukee Bridge.
We always just go Charlevoix, and then it's like we're up north.
The opinions are as varied as the people who live here. And it's been a question that's impossible to answer. Until now. Today, we'll actually give you the answer. A real answer. Because there is one. We have an explanation of why it just feels different up north. And we'll tell you where up north actually begins. This is On Hand, a podcast answering your questions about all the things that make Michigan unique. I'm April Baer. And for this question, I am joined by On Hand executive producer and up north enthusiast, Laura Weber Davis. Laura, hey.
Hi, Bear.
So where does up north begin for you?
A Zilwaukee Bridge.
Oh.
There's really no question. When you come over that bridge that's outside of Saginaw, just north of Saginaw, and you come over that bridge, I don't know, there's something about being a southeast Michigander that when you cross that thing, it's like, yep, I'm up north now. And, you know, for many people, it's Clare and Ludington and West Branch. My dad always said it was West Branch because that was like the stop on the drive north. That was like the last major fast food restaurant hub. And so you were going to stop there before you went all the way up north. And for him, it was always West Branch. And, you know, everyone has an opinion, but most folks will say that you just know because it's vibes. And when you know, you know.
Well, what about our listener Kate's question about whether it actually starts in White Cloud?
It's funny. You know, we should note that several people submitted this question, including Kate. I just really loved the way that she asked it because even she felt a little skeptical of where it begins.
It's like, you know, my mom used to say we were going up north when we would go see her sister in Whitehall, which is like a 30-minute drive from here. I was like, Mom, no, it doesn't count. But maybe back in the logging days, it was. I don't know. I have to admit, while I should be loyal to my grandmother, for me, particularly somebody who went to Michigan Tech, where the north begins to me is at the south end of the bridge. When you're no longer a troll and you're on your way north.
So, Laura, where do we go from here? How do we sink our teeth into this controversial question?
Well, we reached out to the Michigander who has arguably traveled and put more miles around this state than the rest of us, Gretchen Whitmer.
My mom and stepdad always used to take us north, whether we were going to Onekama or Elk Rapids or anywhere in between. Up north represented carefree summer weekends.
So that's Gretchen Whitmer. And to be clear, she's our state's governor. And it'll knock your socks off to know that for the governor of Michigan, our chief executive, whose final say is really where we should be heading, she says that up north is, vibes.
Up north is a state of mind, right? It's when you're in your happy place. You're looking at water or you're looking at the woods, right? And you're able to enjoy nature. So it can be even as far south as South Haven. It just depends on you. You know what I've noticed? There's a point in my drive where my shoulders get, more relaxed, right? They're not up by my ears. I start to relax. And, I think it's when you cross Highway 10, the highway that kind of cuts across the Lower Peninsula from Ludington to Bay City. I get north of that and I feel like, okay, I'm up north. I can relax and I'm going to start to, just have some fun and enjoy my family and play cards and sit around campfires. Like that's what up north feels like to me. I just think we are so blessed to have so much fresh water that you can make your own little piece of heaven, whether it's on an inland lake or at a state park that abuts one of the Great Lakes or anywhere in between. Like I said, it's a state of mind. We want everyone to, live on their own terms, enjoy up north, even if it means you're in Charlotte. There's so many wonderful aspects of the state, so many different places and so many different seasons. It looks different every year for every person.
Okay, but Charlotte is not up north.
That's why I said, if you're in Charlotte, go have it.
There's something about when I pass Uncle John's, I'm like, I think we're getting close to up north.
I know.
Now.
I used to say St. John's and people roasted me, Laura. So there you go.
Okay, it's just a feeling. You heard it from Big Gretch herself. I gotta say, spoken like an elected official.
Yep, that's all it is. I thought to myself before I got an email that changed the whole game up for me, April, and fundamentally altered my understanding of the state that I've lived in and loved my entire life. I got an email from a listener named Christopher who said, the reason up north feels different has actual scientific explanations, and that reason is documented in a series of intricate maps from the Michigan Natural Features Inventory at the Michigan State Extension. And Bear, I'm telling you, these maps are crazy.
Really? How so?
Well, there is an actual line that they have drawn that starts on Lake Michigan north of Muskegon, and it squiggles its way up just south of Clare and then through mid-Michigan, and it continues northeast to Pinconning on the Saginaw Bay. And north of this line, there is what this team of ecologists call rich conifer swamps and a bunch of other natural features that we all, the common folk and the laymen, call
up north.
Yes, exactly. And it's true that these places, north and south of this squiggly line, feel different, but I'm only good at explaining the vibes. So I've really got to pass you off now to an expert.
Laura, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, up next, an ecologist schools us on what the tangible, natural world tells us when we're up north. Whether your answer to the place up north begins is Ludington or Clare or the Zilwaukee Bridge or the Mackinac Bridge, there is some truth in all of those answers. And there are answers to this Michigan mystery in the natural world around us. The Michigan Natural Features Inventory has documented and mapped many different types of ecological and zoological systems all throughout the state. What takes shape on these maps are squiggly blobs and pockets of overlapping natural features and lines that delineate where you find one type of thing, like forests or grasslands or wetlands, and where you can't find them. What takes shape, if you were to overlay these maps, is a thick line from east to west that some ecologists will call the tension zone, a band that marks where the natural world really starts to change pretty dramatically.
It's called tension because there's plants from the boreal region that are reaching their southern extent, and there's plants from the southern prairie savanna region that are reaching their northern extent.
That's Joshua Cohen, lead ecologist and senior conservation scientist with the Michigan Natural Features Inventory. He says early in his career, he became familiar with this zone of ecological change in a book called The Vegetation of Wisconsin, published in 1959, showing that ecologists have been working on these questions for generations. The work shows that this band of ecological change is regional through Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
And so it's a line that crosses through all three states. It varies in width, and it's been changing as our climate has changed.
I feel like you've just opened up this world that's hiding in plain sight, the floristic ranges. Oh my gosh. So the map on the website includes this squiggly line that runs roughly from Whitehall, a little north of Muskegon, on Lake Michigan, northeast to Pinconning, off of Saginaw Bay. I think you just called this the tension zone, right?
The climatic tension zone,
right.
Yes. It's complicated in that there's different placements in terms of that tension zone. So there's another seminal work called Regional Landscape Ecosystems of Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. It's a hierarchical classification of all three states. And my predecessor at Michigan Natural Features Inventory, Denny Albert, did this work in about 1995, and he classified different kind of regions of the state, which include southern Michigan, northern Michigan, the eastern Upper Peninsula, and the western Upper Peninsula. And this hierarchical classification looks at climate, geology, soils, vegetation, and land use to divide the state up into these four different broad regions.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about some of these ecological differences and their classifications. Can you explain what a rich conifer swamp is? I mean, that's like a kind of classic up north ecological feature, right?
So it is largely distributed across northern Michigan. Rich conifer swamp is a swamp dominated by northern white cedar, or Thuya occidentalis. But because of the Great Lakes, we do have a lot of areas in southern Michigan which get moderated climates, and you get many of these northern trees and plants that come down into the southern part of the state. So we do have some outliers of rich conifer swamp in the southern part of the state, but the concentration is in northern Michigan.
What are some of the reasons why you don't see ecological features like that in the southern parts of the state as much?
So it is largely linked to climate. So kind of this north-south divide has a lot to do with growing seasons, more snowpack, lower mean winter temperature, lower mean summer temperature. But there's also distinctions related to glacial landforms. The southern part of the state has a lot more lake plain and clay in the soils. So there's some differences in terms of the soils that we see because of the landforms that occur across the state. When you have some clays in the soil, you have flat lands, you get a lot of agriculture. So I think a lot of people will recognize a sharp distinction between southern Michigan and northern Michigan in terms of forest cover. So there's highest concentration of people are in the southern part of the state, where we have most of our agricultural lands and our cities. And as you head north, you'll note there's tons of public land. State forest and national forest kind of starts in northern Michigan. A lot of those lands have soils that are considered poor for agriculture, and a lot of them actually reverted back to the state and have been managed in over 4 million acres of state forest land.
So when we talk about what I, as a person driving through Michigan, might see when I'm up north, what trees and plants specifically might I see that I might be less likely to see in southern Michigan?
I think most people notice right away white pine. I know that's when it clicks in my mind when I'm driving north. I'm up north now, and I have a really distinct and kind of emotional memory of during COVID, when we didn't know if we were going to be able to conduct field work because of the pandemic, and we finally got the green light this time of year in 2020, and my first trip up north hit white pines along I-75, kind of the West Branch area. And I will admit, I did cry just because of that feeling of the release of tension. I think a lot of people feel that when they drive north. A lot of people are going north for vacation and recreation, to visit family, to be out in nature. And, I feel that as an ecologist as well. And so that was a powerful moment. I think a lot of people in my organization felt it as well, that, okay, things are going to be okay. We can continue our work and be in the places that a lot of us love in terms of ecological research.
Is that up north feeling times 1,000?
Yes.
Josh, do the tension zones shift much over time?
That's a great question. I would assume yes, that as the climate changes, the tension zone is changing. Michigan was glaciated. When I talk about landforms are post-glacial features formed by the retreat of the glaciers. And so that tension zone would have been following that retreat as well. And I think climate scientists would argue that the tension zone is shifting right now as we're getting warmer temperatures, as we're getting less snow. I mentioned the mean annual temperature in the winter and the mean annual temperature in the summer as kind of important factors in terms of where kind of northern Michigan starts. What's interesting to think about is those are changing, but the kind of ecological stages, it takes longer for those to change. So or they don't change. That's landform, soils, bedrock underneath the mineral and organic soils.
It's easy for me to understand how someone like you, who's in the know on the species and the soil, would have that kind of vibe shift when you go up north. But do you think that all the ecological difference between north and south, do you think that has an effect on people in addition to their memories?
Yeah, I think so. I know that I breathe easier. My blood pressure lowers. That's a real physiological effect. A lot of people are pushing forest bathing, getting out into nature. I think there's real, I'm not an expert on that, but I know that my physical, emotional, and mental well-being depend on being out in, different ecosystems for prolonged periods of time. I was recently at an Indigenous Food Sovereignty Summit in East Lansing, and a woman who works for the Sioux tribe named Lori was giving a presentation with our organization about medicinal plants, and she brought a jar of ground cedar, and we passed it around the room, and I was passing different medicinal plants around and opening them so people could smell the different medicines. And I noticed just a shift in my mindset and an immediate relaxation when I'd opened that jar of cedar. And 2 minutes later, Lori mentioned cedar is used in order to drop your blood pressure. Just the aroma of cedar can help in terms of kind of altering your mental state in a positive way.
Joshua Cohen is lead ecologist and senior conservation scientist at Michigan State Extension's Michigan Natural Features Inventory. Josh, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about your work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed the conversation and the opportunity to talk to you about up north.
What's interesting is that our listener, Kate, who originally submitted the question, joked about her mom saying that Whitehall was up north, even when they lived just 17 miles south in Muskegon. But there is some truth to what Kate's mom was saying. That line or tension zone that Joshua Cohen has been talking about passes right through Whitehall and White Cloud, too. So their claim to fame as where the North begins is pretty legit. Thank you so much to Kate for submitting this controversial question, and to listener Christopher, who turned our attention toward the Michigan Natural Features Inventory. And if you'd like to see maps from the Michigan Natural Features Inventory, head over to the website. We've got them for you at michiganpublic.org/onhand. What questions do you have about Michigan? Got something bothering you about the history of Mackinac Island? Or who makes the best fudge? Submit your questions to us at OnHand, and we'll try to answer them in an upcoming episode. You can head over to michiganpublic.org, the website, /onhand. Also, if you're listening to us on podcast, there's a link in today's show notes. Today's podcast was produced by Laura Weber Davis. Other producers are Mike Blank, Ronia Kapansag, Michelle Jokish-Polo, and April Van Buren. Our senior producer is Mercedes Mejia. Music for the pod comes from Blue Dot and from Audio Network. I'm April Baer, just another troll living the life south of the bridge. Bye-bye.